All right, welcome to another Buffalo preview here. We're joined by the voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson. And Mark, I wanted to ask you, so you've seen a lot of practice now. What is the biggest thing, maybe perception that you had coming in that has changed since all these practices that you've seen?
Well, I'll say this: the depth of this team has really impressed me over the course of time. That's been the one thing when you think about the 10-year drought the Buffs had. Don't need to remind CU fans of that. That was altered, of course, in 2016 when they went 10 games, but there was no depth. And even if you go back just a couple of years ago, that was a great starting 22, and there were a few different reserves in there. I think that were pretty good players, but the Buffs really kind of walked a little bit of a tightrope that year. If they would have had a major injury somewhere, really could have kind of, put that season in jeopardy. This team's got depth. They're still, as we stand here today, 19 practices in, Reed, you still see there are a few areas where I won't say that there's uncertainty in the position, but maybe who's going to start. And it really doesn't matter because, coaches have talked about rotating guys in those positions. And so that's been a thing that's impressed me. And what that tells me is what Mike McIntyre and his staff have done from a recruiting standpoint here the last few seasons has worked. They've got talent in starting lineups. They've got guys behind them who are talented enough to start. And so it's starting to look like a full roster and program once again, which we haven't seen here for a while at CU.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. You look at the Pac-12. There's some opportunity for this team, isn't there, when you look at their roster stacked up to some of the other teams?
Yeah, without question. And maybe early on in Pac-12 play, when they first came into the league here about, 6-7 years ago, that's where they didn't match up, right? I think there was a liability in speed. There was a liability in depth with this program. They've, if not narrowed that gap, maybe totally eliminated that gap in that regard. And so that's impressive. And that's why, as I watch this thing, I'm always optimistic about the Buffaloes. But I think there's hard evidence behind now feeling, okay, 2 years ago they were a very good team. They were a top 10 team in the country, played for the Pac-12 championship. Last year, I don't think it was a lack of talent nor lack of depth in this team. It was a learning process about playing at that high level all the time. This team has learned that. Now there's the raw material to go along with that, and that's why I feel good about it.
Now, a week out from the CSU game, they have a game on Saturday. Is that an advantage? Is it a disadvantage? Could it work both ways? How do you see that?
Well, I see that at 6 of one, a half dozen of the other, because they're going to get a chance to go out there, the Rams are, knock the rust off, knock the nerves out, and kind of get into game action and really feel, that high intensity of what a game is like. For Colorado, though, they get a chance to see things that the Rams are going to do. They've got a brand new defensive coordinator at CSU. And so the Buffs will have an opportunity to see what that looks like. Now, my guess is CSU is going to try and not show everything if they can, kind of like a preseason game in the NFL. However, if that does become a competitive ball game between the Rams and Hawaii, then all of a sudden you got to show a little more of what you probably didn't want to. And so I do think there's an advantage for the Rams. Like I said, they get to knock off the nerves and the rust, and that might be a little greater advantage for them than CU getting a chance to see. But still, the Buffs do get a chance to kind of view the Rams' defensive playbook a little bit. I do think there's value in that.
About a week away to the first game against CSU, Friday night, Rocky Mountain Showdown. He'll call it, the voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, with Gary Barnett, and we'll have a lot more from him coming up on KOA.